BBC Sounds. Music, radio, podcasts.
Hello, I'm Amy Canavan and this is the Scottish Football Podcast. All the news, views and analysis you need on Thursday the 1st of May, and there's a serious shortlist to consider.
You can't win it in a better way. Such a brilliant performance.
For where we've been to where we are now, we've given ourselves a brilliant opportunity.
We were ready to go on Friday night. Let's get ourselves over that line.
Who is going to be named Manager of the Year? There's a trophy heading to Ayrshire.
Ruben Cooper will absolutely claim that. If you don't buy a ticket, you're not going to win the lottery. And he has just come up trumps big time for Kilmarnock.
Kilmarnock win the Youth Cup, but are we on the right track developing young talent? And there's going to be a final day of drama tomorrow night in the Championship.
Oh, that is more than decent from Mackie, who fires Falkirk into the lead.
Go! It's gone all the way to the end. It looks it's a second for Livingston.
Will Falkirk or Livingston come out on top as the title goes down to the wire?
The Scottish Football Podcast.
Lots to discuss as we kick off the month of May with football journalist Moira Gordon and former Scotland striker Lee Miller. Let's get right into things then, starting with the Manager of the Year shortlist, which was announced yesterday. 3 names on the men's shortlist: Brendan Rodgers, David Gray and John McGlynn. Moira, you've had these sort of, I don't want to call it issues, but we'll go with issues for now, with the Football Writers Awards throughout the years, the nominations. It's always a little bit tricky getting these names and nominations in at this stage of the season when there is still so much up in the air. But do you think the 3 names are 3 warranted names?
I think you can't dispute that all 3 of them deserve to be in the reckoning, definitely. I think it's really difficult when what we want is tight seasons. We want everything to go to the final game of the season, but as soon as that happens, you're left with the possibility of having egg in your face because the manager that you think may be the one that's about to win the title ends up finishing second or loses that cup, the treble doesn't materialise. All these things are there to make it really difficult for you. But as I say, all 3 of those managers, you can't, argue that they deserve to be lauded this season. It's just which one gets it over the line more that maybe gives them that little nudge ahead of the others to be the final winner.
Absolutely, it's a treble chasing Brendan Rodgers. He already has the double in the bag. Lee, I think no matter how relentless Rodgers and Celtic are, other fans of other clubs always seem to say, well, he's dealt a decent hand to start with. To counter that though, he does still have to go and deliver, and so far he is delivering this season.
He still has to go and do it. The thing is, it's such a long, hard season and all the Champions League games. And listen, he done brilliant in the Champions League. I really enjoyed watching Celtic in the Champions League this season. You can obviously exclude the Borussia Dortmund game, but they learned a lot from that. So yeah, you can build a case from all 3. I'm so glad David Gray's in it. At the time when he was under pressure, he always came out really well in the press. He always spoke really honest. And he backed his players, but he wasn't scared to call them out either. I think because Hibs have stuck by him, they've reaped the benefits from that. And I think the players, you can see the players fight for every single ball and every single game for them. You can see that. It's so clear to see. And then you've got John McGlynn, who could do the double bounce up the leagues, which is incredible. And it's where Falkirk should be. But it's teed up for a right exciting night tomorrow night.
It sure is. Well, we'll certainly get to that in a little moment. But just touching back to David Gray there, I'm not saying that you were ever on a run quite like how Hibs were at the start of the season, but you've had those spells where things have very much been going against you, been going against managers, the fans have been turning on the club and whatnot. How can you sort of put a finger on how David Gray has managed to achieve the turnaround that he has?
Probably being consistent, being true to himself, sticking to his guns, sticking to what he believes in. And like I said, he's always come out and he's never made excuses. He's never went, it's this happened and that happened. You can see at the start of the season, they were playing really well. See the times that I've seen them, they were playing really well. They were just conceding late goals through mistakes. And he was calling that out for what it was. And whether you believe that or not is a different story. But I think he's just stuck to his guns and you can see he's grew stronger and stronger throughout the season, and I just really enjoy the way he carries himself and he comes across, and his team obviously replicates that.
So he wasn't scared to mix things up when he needed to as well, though. That was the thing. It's like a lot of young managers would say, no, this is my style, I'm sticking to it no matter what. He wasn't afraid to shift the formation a bit, use those wing backs more, he moved Triantis more in the middle of the park, and all of those moves you could say were absolutely brilliant moves, and he didn't shy away from them, afraid that people would say, oh, he didn't know what he was doing originally. He just said, no, what I thought plan A wasn't quite working, I'll tweak it slightly and I'll go with this, but still believed in his own ability and the ability of his players and stuck with that. And I think for a young manager not to panic the way he did, and to just stay calm and to actually plot all right through it is phenomenal. I think that's what, genuinely, there's cases to be made for all three of them. My vote was for David Gray this year, because I think for a young manager to come in like that and have the pressure with your own fans, one minute you're a hero for them, and the next minute they were all wanting you out the door. So for him to stay as calm as he did throughout all that and keep the players on side, as you say, Lee, he called them out a few times, but he still kept them on side, and that's not always easy to do. And I think for him to be able to do that and still get them back up to third place, which Hibs should be up in top six, but they haven't really been doing that recently. So for him to do that as the fledgling manager, I think something special.
Yeah, as Lee sort of mentioned, Moira, I don't think many would have fancied David Gray to be in this sort of running as, in November time kind of thing. But a club over the years who you've had a close eye on, where do you think, if he does finish third and he does get that phenomenal turnaround, no matter what, to be honest, it's a phenomenal turnaround, but that third place, where do you think that would rank in league campaigns throughout the last few years?
Compared to last few years, the last manager to do that was Jack Ross, and I think that was had been a long time coming for them to do it at that point. And they decided that the style of football wasn't what they wanted. They didn't tick all the boxes. They made the changes, and it's been managerial chaos almost since then. And then, as I say, bringing in a young manager, you worried from. And especially as a board that was quite knee-jerk, as soon as fans turned on them, they were quite quick in getting rid of people. But he's managed to the course, he's obviously convinced them. And I think the fact that they've gone and done this by just mixing things up, but actually it's even the togetherness in the squad and the togetherness at the club that he seems to have, stirred up again and got everybody back on side. That's a feat in itself. So I think if you look back over the last, decade, it's definitely right up there in terms of where he's got them. So, as I say, for that alone, or not alone, there's several factors in there, but, I think definitely he deserves huge credit.
Yeah, he's sort of transpired as a lot of folks' front runner in the last few weeks and whatnot, but someone who's perhaps not, as Lee touched on, and always does sort of seem to go under the radar that little bit, is John McGlynn. As Lee mentioned, he is on track still just about for back-to-back promotions, back-to-back titles. We will get on to that final game in the Championship in a little bit, but it is very much deserved recognition, Lee, for John McGlynn in the Championship with Falkirk.
Definitely, to come up from League One, having been invincible and coming up and testing your wits against the Championship. The Championship is such a tough league. It's so tight, it's so close. All the teams can beat each other. For him to come up and play the same style, yes, he mixed it up a little bit. He had to change slightly. But for all, it's very much the nucleus of the squad has stayed the same. He's tweaked it here and there. Obviously, the signing of Scott Arfield has been an unbelievable signing that kind of kicked them on a wee bit when they were maybe a wee bit flat at the time. He's been a tremendous signing. The goals he scored, the contributions he's had within the games. I just think his presence throughout the club, having been there before, he's obviously had an amazing career. From him to go in and the players to look at him and how he conducts himself, he's a really good pro. So that's made the big difference for me this season. But no, he deserves so much credit because a lot of people were maybe having a go at him for letting Callum Morrison go. Callum Morrison was flying. He was one of the talismans the season before. So for letting him go and then a masterstroke of bringing Scott Arfield in was genius, yeah.
He just sort of has this knack over the years, Moira, doesn't he? I was looking through Falkirk's recent seasons under McGlynn and whatnot, and seeing the slight changes that he made in the squad at the turn of each year, but managing to do so every single time with a bunch of free transfers. Like, I know we talk about it, but he genuinely must have like the best black book in the industry, because every single boy manages to get in is on some sort of free transfer. He's just managed to sneak them in, and then manages to, take them from League One, and looks like they're going to head up to the Premiership as well. It's the way that he manages, John McGlynn, isn't it?
He's a very shrewd manager. I mean, he knows a good player, but he also knows how to build a jigsaw puzzle. It's not just going out and getting the best players. He knows how to fill the spaces that are needing strengthened, and he does that very well. But he's also, I mean, Leo probably know the guys more than I do, but he's a players manager. Players love John McGlynn. There's rarely a player that speaks even slightly badly about him. They love going out and playing for him. And I think if you're going out and trying to wheel and deal in the market, that's a massive asset. People want to go and play for a manager that's going to make it fun, that you're going to feel rewarded and valued, and he makes his players feel that way. And I think even the way he handled the Callum Morrison situation was fantastic. He made sure he had his dressing room aside. It was a case of the sum of the parts rather than one player. One player was never going to be bigger than the rest of the squad. And he made the decision that was a hard decision, and it was a gamble for him, but he made the decision that was going to keep the rest of the squad inside and keep them unified. And I think that was a really brave and a very shrewd move from him.
Yeah, all such attributes throughout the year have always contributed to his name being around the top of the list whenever a managerial vacancy comes around. He is, unsurprisingly, fairly at the front of the Hearts list for the next manager. Is that a fit that you see happening again, Lee, or do you think that he's the man with the cap is quite happy kicking around in Falkirk?
I think the man with the cap is probably happy taking Falkirk up to the Premier League. I think it's been a massive project for him. Obviously, coming away from Rafe Rovers to go to Falkirk was a bigger budget. The fan base is incredible at Falkirk. The Falkirk fan base deserve to be in the SPFL, but you have to obviously work hard and earn it. But no, I think he'll see it out for at least another season. If they do go up, who knows? But I think he'll be true to his word, and he'll take his squad of players that he's built over the last 3 seasons or whatnot. I think he'll want to see them thrive in the Premier League.
Yeah, three tremendous candidates, but as we mentioned at the top, Moira, there is always that chance for some egg on the face. What other names do you think should maybe be, or maybe feel a little bit hard done by to not be in that conversation? I think when you look at the reaction online, you see Jimmy Tulline, should he finish third and get a Scottish Cup, then that's still a fantastic season for Aberdeen. Jim Goodwin, Scott Kelleher up at Inverness, Michael McIndoe at Edinburgh City. All these names are sort of in the discourse, aren't they?
That's it. And again, we look at the Championship there. I mean, if Livingston were to come back and get over the line, David Martindale's another one like John McGlynn that tends to get overlooked each time, and he delivers. He just keeps delivering. It might not always be people's favourite style of football, or they maybe undercut him slightly because it's like, well, they're playing their home games at Almondvale and that pitch gives them an advantage. So there's certain things that people will take points away for, as it were, for David Martindale. But I mean, if he was to pip Falkirk in this final night, I mean, what an end to a season, and what an achievement to go, bounce straight back. So definitely, I don't think David Martindale will be surprised, because I think he's kind of used to flying under the radar and quite likes being that to a certain degree. But I also think that he can maybe feel aggrieved that he's not on that list.
You reckon he can make a case for himself late on, Lee?
What, Pep Martindale? Yes, of course. I've got so much time for Davey. Got a good relationship with him, and he's had a fantastic season. And the fact that he wrote himself off and gave Falkirk the Championship a good few weeks ago, and now he's right bang in it. So it's just teed up for an incredible night on Friday night. But no, he won't be hard done by. He's, like Moira says, he's quite happy. He has been for years, just floating under the radar, getting on with things, doing his thing. He'll be happy with that.
Absolutely, I'm sure he will be. Another thing that sort of floated under the radar a little bit last night, the Youth Cup final. Kilmarnock took the trophy back down the M77 after defeating Dundee 2-0. There was also a Glasgow Cup final where Rangers beat Celtic the night before. But Killie were pretty dominant last night. Lee, how much do you think we learn about the future of our game in these kind of games?
You can look into it slightly. It's obviously in a big stage, crowds there, it's at Hampden. I never seen the game last night, but I was told about it, and I said, obviously Kilmarnock came out 2-0 victors. I just think it frustrates me, Scottish football, with the youth setup, just with, I wish there was a rule in terms of you have to have 2 academy graduates in the starting lineup or in the squad, or there just needs to be a better pathway for these academy players, for these youth players coming up. There seems to be too much of a gap, whether it's reserve football that needs to come back in, whether it's something. There just seems to be too much of a gap, and every time they get close, there's players that have come through and done really well, but some of them just filter out and then just filter out to the lower league teams, which they'll make a career for themselves, but they're on that pathway and on that trajectory to go and play in the first team. But I understand the first team managers are under so much pressure that they can't play them, and it just frustrates me. I wish there was a kind of some sort of ruling or some sort of thing that you could say, right, you have to have this, and then academies would be better. And I know people, old firm managers over the years have said no, but they need to be good enough. We'll make them good enough. Make them good enough, get the best players and train them and coach them to play in your team, because you have to play them in your team. I don't know.
I guess you're in that sort of unique position, aren't you? Because you've sort of seen it from all angles. You've seen it as a player yourself, as a coach, and as a father. So, see from the difference from when you were coming through to when Lennon and your other kids are going through academies and whatnot. What differences or lack of differences have you seen over the years?
Well, I stayed at Falkirk. I had the chance to go to bigger teams in the Premier League and stuff. I stayed at Falkirk because I seen a pathway there. I thought, do you know what, I'm going to ply my trade, lower leagues, and then kick on, hopefully play first team football and rack up the appearances. I kind of had the same idea for Lennon. Lennon kind of thought that himself. He sees a pathway, and he was always told that at Motherwell, and it just so happened he made that breakthrough and kicked on, and obviously it's down to hard work, but there's not a lot to it, and it frustrates me, and I just wish there was something in place that, I'm not saying it forces teams to do it, but you would then develop your players even more so. You would put more time into it to get these players in the first team. I just don't think that's happening. You see the players at Rangers and Celtic, you hardly see a player coming through, and if they do, they get 5 minutes, 10 minutes here and there, and then they have to go on loan, and then they just fizzle away and fizzle out, and it's just frustrating because we have got really good young players coming through in Scotland. But I just think they get to a stage and then it just fizzles out.
Who needs to step in here, Moira? Is it an SPFL decision? Is it clubs having to take that initiative themselves? Because I think we can all agree with what Lee's saying. You can sort of see or hope to see that template. I think most fans of most clubs want to see academy-grown, homegrown players, but they fleetingly get that chance, particularly in the top flight. So what does need to change and who needs to change?
It's hard because the SPFL can't change it without the clubs. It is the clubs that make that decision. But as Lee says, clubs are under pressure because they can't afford to be relegated. So you find that a lot of young players only come in through necessity because, your first 3 strikers are being injured, so the kid suddenly gets promoted. And some kids will come in and do brilliantly. Others, it is too big a jump from development football to first team. And I genuinely think that the reserve league is something we need to sort out, and do it in a way where these young kids are playing against, the more seasoned pros that are coming back from injury, or that, because the gap between development football, where it's not non-contact, but it's not as physical as coming into a first team SPFL game. And that's a big factor for a lot of them. Some of them find that it's just, they're bustled out of games, they're not strong enough yet, and they're not wily enough to know how to, if you're not strong enough, avoid those situations or get themselves out of it. So you need to have a really good football brain at a very young age to be able to cope with those physical discrepancies. So I genuinely think that reserve team football would be a step in the right direction. It's not going to solve it all by itself, but it's going to be a massive step towards closing the gap between that development football and allowing the clubs that do give the kids the chance to be promoted in the first team, they've got a far better chance of staying there for longer. The only problem is once they're in there and doing really well for a short period of time, you'll get the bigger clubs that want to come and take them away, and they're suddenly back playing development football or sitting on a bench somewhere. So I admire the likes of Lee saying that, that he made that decision. I admire the fact that Lennon hasn't. And I think if you look back in history, a lot of the players that have made it and had a longevity in first team SPFL have been patient. They've been patient and willing to bank on themselves, bet on themselves that you don't need to make the big money right now or, jump at the first chance that comes along, that if you keep doing what you're doing, you'll be an even better proposition for an even better club in a few years' time. And I think having the right people around about you, whether it's agents, whether it's family, and just being a bit smart yourself or trusting your manager, that's all factors that come into it as well. But it's all these things have to come together to give you that winning package or that winning player, and it's difficult. But as I say, I think reserve team football would definitely be sorting that out and closing the gap between development and first team would definitely be a step in the right direction.
Yeah, I think many people beyond this podcast and listening to this podcast will certainly agree with that. Something else that they've got to surely agree with is the Championship tomorrow night. Promises to be an evening of unrivalled drama. It draws to a very dramatic close. A few weeks ago, Lee, we would have thought that Falkirk perhaps would have been the first side in the SPFL to wrap up their respective league, and yet here we are heading into a final day decider. Falkirk just about favourites heading into it, given their goal difference. They host Hamilton Accies tomorrow night, but my goodness, where has it all gone wrong in recent weeks, Lee? Is it a bad case of nerves?
I don't know. I honestly don't know. But if you flip that and say, if you had to give John McGlynn and his players the chance to play Hamilton at home, Hamilton are obviously bottom of the league. If you had the chance to play Hamilton at home and a win gets you into the SPFL, they would have took it all day long. So I think you have to strip it back. That's what John McGlynn will be doing. He'll be getting rid of all the negativity, the draws, the defeat obviously last week. One game, it's a cup final. It's a cup final for them. And it's at home, and I'm sure it'll be a packed house at the Falkirk Stadium. So yes, they've stumbled slightly and had a few dodgy results that you thought they would have went on to just stroll. But they've got one game. A one-game shootout. If they win the game, they're up. That's it. End of. If they don't, obviously Livingston need to win their game, and Davey will just be concentrating on that and telling his players that. But it's teed up. It's teed up for an exciting Friday night.
It sure is. John McGlynn will be hoping he's not speaking to me tomorrow night to block out all that negativity that I bring. But Lee is spot on, Moira. It's just a one-game shootout, and when you do strip it back like that, if you handed this to John McGlynn and his players at the start of the season, they would surely bite their hand off. But it's just the way that this season has transpired, and particularly that sort of bulk between the New Year and March, that the Falkirk were just rampant, and at times it was 11 points, it was 8 points. That's maybe what sees me maybe lose sight of just how an incredible an achievement this is, no matter how they go about doing it, because at the end of the day, nobody next season will look at when Falkirk won it, will they? It's just about getting the job over the line.
I mean, that's what I was saying about John McGlynn. He's some guy, he even manages to keep the BBC happy, giving them drama right to the last day of the season. I mean, the guy's good.
That's totally why he's doing it.
But, as Lee said, at the end of the day, getting over the line, no matter how you do it, is going to be an achievement. It's and the fact that they're in that position, coming down to the final game is huge. But I think it's funny, throughout this season, I feel like I've talked about this championship, how tight it is, and each time I've said it'd be crazy to bet on it. I would never bet more than £1 on the championship. And then a few weeks ago, I was like, no, we probably can give Falkirk the title now. And it's like, and here we go, they're proving my point, never bet on the championship. So I think it's exciting. It was never going to be a one-horse race. It wasn't going to be the invincible season. And I think they set their own high standards, Falkirk, so people expect them just to be relentless and keep delivering. But you know, you look at all teams throughout a season, there'll always be a small period where they stumble slightly. And, you know, going into the final run, did you want that to be the point where you were only getting 1 win out of 5? Probably not. But if you can make it 2 wins out of 6 and they win the title, nobody will care, you know. So I think they're still in the box seat. They're the ones that know that they have fate in their own hands. They go out there, win it, and that will probably focus their mind. They're a good squad, good players. You know, should focus their minds. But again, I'm not betting on the championship, not even £1 on this one.
Absolutely not. It's probably a wise move, but in stark contrast to that, just that 1 win in 5, Livy have really managed to hit a fine form, finding a bit of consistency at the tail end of the season. It's probably kicked off actually just about when David Martindale conceded the title and continued to concede the title week in, week out. Lee, is this a mind game masterstroke from David Martindale?
From Pep Martindale again? Yeah, probably. He knows what to say in the right moments. But he'll have his squad well G'd up and focused, and he has a bit of laugh and carry on as well. But he knows when to be serious. He definitely does. And listen, he'll be focused on this one game alone. It's a tough game. It'll be a tough game against Partick. You've got a lot to play for as well. So no, I genuinely don't know. Like Moira said, I couldn't even bet on it. I couldn't even call it just now.
Yeah, it's a massive thanks to all within the championship who have managed to keep this drama heading into the final day, because as Lee mentions there, it's still that fight for the final 4th spot, the final playoff spot, and you can obviously keep across all the action. Falkirk against Hamilton is on the BBC Scotland channel, and Livingston against Partick Thistle is on the iPlayer and BBC Sport Scotland website from 7:30. So tomorrow, that is the place to be. But for now, that is all we've got time for. My many thanks go to Moira Gordon and Lee Miller, and thank you for listening. Remember, we're here with new episodes of the Scottish Football Podcast bright and early every morning, so to make sure you don't miss out, subscribe on BBC Sounds and have push notifications turned on in your phone. But until next time, bye bye.
He was one of the most enigmatic owners in football.
Can you describe Vladimir Romanov in one word? Mysterious.
His roller coaster reign of Hearts had incredible highs.
Hearts beat by 1 goal to 0.
And remarkable lows.
He fires the coach right there on the bus in front of all the team.
So who was Vladimir Romanov, and where is he now?
If you gave this storyline to a Hollywood filmmaker, it'd get rejected. Too incredulous.
I'm Martin Geisler, and this is Romanov, Tsar of Hearts. Listen on BBC Sounds.